The Chicago Bears go to OSU's Pro Day and skip Ashton Gentry's. Does that mean anything as a sign or indication of what the Chicago Bears are going to do at number 10? We'll talk a little bit about that, plus more draft news and other things around the Chicago Bears. All that and more right after this.
You are now tuned in to Chicago Bears Central, your number one place for all Chicago Bears news and content.
What's going on, Bears fans? Welcome to another episode of Chicago Bears Central, your number one spot for everything Chicago Bears related. I'm the host there, Hayes, but more importantly, you guys can follow the channel at Chi Bears Central on every social media platform we happen to be on. With that said, let's go and get into this content for today. So Ryan Poles, Ben Johnson, and Dennis Allen spent the day at OSU. You guys know I was excited about that. And went in attendance for the Pro Day at OSU. Now, this means that they were not in attendance for Ashton Gentry's Pro Day, which has raised some questions and concerns from some Bears pundits on, is Ashton Gentry now somebody that may be off the board for the Chicago Bears at number 10? The way I view it is this. They do have a top 30 visit scheduled with Ashton Gentry. They've already met with him before. There's more than enough tape on Ashton Gentry. So while this could be an indication, I'm not going to say that it's not. I don't think we can take it as 100% indication either that the Bears are no longer considering Ashton Gentry there at number 10. So I think the Bears continue to just leave their doors open, right, on what's going to happen. We don't even know if Ashton Gentry is necessarily going to fall to the Chicago Bears at number 10 because he could go to the Las Vegas Raiders. So there's a lot of questions up in air when it comes down to that. Of course, this just adds another layer on the speculation and conversation around what Ashton Gentry and the Bears and the interest is there. I think that's all that you could take that as. It's not anything that really is a strong indicator one way or another. It can strengthen your already views on the situation depending on how you look at it. But, we'll see how it goes down to. But OSU's Pro Day has a lot of players that could be on the board for the Chicago Bears at different places. Of course, first one is Josh Simmons, right? And we've talked a lot about Josh Simmons here and how him as an offensive tackle, the biggest question for him is the health. If teams feel confident in his medicals. Now, I'm not saying teams are going to necessarily reach on him because there is enough speculation around him to where he can go towards maybe the middle of the first round. But I would not be surprised if a team does snatch him up early if they do feel confident in his medicals and what he's able to show. So him in pro days, the one-on-one workouts, how the medicals that he sends to teams are all going to be hugely important to where his draft stock ends up going. Josh Simmons is a guy that I do think will go in the top 10. He's a legitimate left tackle in the NFL, right? While you have and I should say he would go in the top 10 if it was not for the injury concerns. He's a legitimate left tackle. He's not one of those guys like many people in the draft that you worry, is he actually going to be a guard at the next level? There's not really those kind of questions there. And that patella tendon that he's recovering from that cut his season short, that's the biggest thing there, right? So he's worked out for a lot of coaches, general managers so far, which is really good that he's on a good pace for recovery. So keep Josh Simmons' name out there. And even if it's not for the Bears, I do think he's a guy that could still end up being the best tackle in this draft if he's just able to stay healthy. And if a team gets him middle of the first round instead of higher in the first round, that could be tremendous value for that team. But, of course, Josh Simmons being there, it does make sense for the Bears to want to take a look at his medicals. Next up, Donovan Jackson, another guy who could be a guard or tackle at the next level as well. He stepped in for Josh Simmons when he went down, right? And his versatility could be a huge asset for the Chicago Bears as well, right? And so if the Bears do take him to back up both positions at either guard or tackle, that helps their depth. They have a quality player there. I do think Donovan Jackson does make a lot of sense for the Bears potentially at where the Bears' offensive line is and the fact that you can play him at either position. I like that a whole lot for those guys as well. So Donovan Jackson is another reason why the Bears going to OSU's Pro Day makes a lot of sense. And then, of course, you have the two running backs, Quinshon, Judkins, TreVeyon, Henderson. Those two guys, both positions that everybody expects the Chicago Bears to absolutely go out there and try to attack. Makes a lot of sense for the Chicago Bears to be at their Pro Day again. Like I said, the OSU Pro Day is probably one of the most sensible Pro Days for the Bears to go to, even if it meant missing out on Ashton Gentry's Pro Day, mainly because of all the different positions here at different places of the draft that could make sense for the Chicago Bears. And Quinshon Judkins and TreVeyon Henderson, they nail that home even more. They make a lot of sense for where the Bears have their several picks at. And it could be guys that end up being well above, their draft status when it's all said and done as well, right? So we know that, Marion Hampton, Ashton Gentry, they make the most, they are the top running backs in the class, right? But TreVeyon Henderson and Quinshon Judkins, they're right there. And they could be gotten at the second round. And if you get that quality from them in the second round, like Quinshon Judkins especially, like he's a bigger David Montgomery. So again, another thing that makes sense for the Chicago Bears. And then you have the edge rushers, Jack Sawyer and Jeanty Timilau, who are very productive edge rushers. They make a lot of sense for the Bears as well. They both can be guys that really fit under Dennis Allen's defensive scheme as well, the physical makeup that he likes there. I like both those guys there. And then you also have defensive tackle Tyleik Williams as well. So, he's a guy 6'3", 326 pounds. While we have Andrew Billings right now is going to probably be that third defensive tackle, he's another guy that you can build up and draft and go that way. So there's a lot of guys here that make a whole lot of sense. And then lastly, but not least, Lathan Ransom, the safety out of OSU, right? We know that the Bears, I've been a guy, more people have come on board of the Bears needing to take a look at safety in this draft. This is another guy that I think makes a lot of sense for the Chicago Bears. So this pro day it makes so much sense, right? And the fact that both of them, Ryan Poles and Ben Johnson, were there, I think it pushes that even more. Like everybody was there. The head coach and Ben Johnson, the defensive coordinator and Dennis Allen, and the guy running it all in Ryan Poles, right? So them and the number of prospects that are here that could be on the board for several of the Bears picks that all make sense for the Bears, it's great. And no, I'm not just saying this because I'm an OSU guy and I love my OSU players. It's not just that. And hopefully I've presented to where you guys know I'm being objective about this. I'm not saying that the Bears are going to draft all these guys. I'm not saying that there aren't players better on the board than some of these guys for the Bears. I'm just saying that being at this pro day and being able to take a look at so many legitimate options at positions of need for you, it just made sense for the Bears to be here. So I don't know what this means for Ashton Gentry. Like I said, I'm not going to speculate and go into some overboard analysis on it, but I will say it's interesting. But it does make sense for the Bears to be at this one rather than go to one pro day that's just for one player that can fit and lead, that you have a top 30 visit scheduled with anyway, that you've already met with, that you already have tons of tape on, you already know what he can be. And it makes more sense to go in here and see if you can find a diamond in the rough. And Josh Simmons, especially with his health, getting over that, if you can answer any questions on that, makes a lot of sense for the Bears. And then, like I said, Donovan Jackson makes sense. The running backs in TreVeyon and Quinshon makes a lot of sense for the Bears too. And we'll see what the Bears end up doing here. I'll say this, right? Do I think the Bears, if I had to pick anybody on this list, do I think the Bears would draft, right? I know Quinshon Judkins is a guy that I would love to see on the Bears, but I'm actually going to say Donovan Jackson is the one that I think makes the most sense here for the Bears as far as somebody that they're really going to probably be able to get with one of their day 2 picks that is at a position of need and can fill multiple positions. And that's especially when you're looking at depth and you're bringing in somebody who could potentially push Braxton Jones, but also if he doesn't, great, he can back up several positions. I'll say that one. But again, we'll see what the future does hold for the Bears and any of these OSU players. But with that said, there is an article out that I want to talk a little bit about for the Chicago Bears. And this one's written by Ryan Heckman. He says 2 draft day traps that Ryan Poles cannot fall for and one that he might. And, I think this is an interesting angle to take on it. So first up, in this, he says this: Ryan Poles absolutely must not package the Bears' second-round picks to move back into the first round. And initially in reading this, my first thought went to, well, it depends on the prospect that there's at the end of the first, right? Because it'd be different if the Bears picked, they had one of the first 3 picks in the second round. They don't, right? They're what, 7 picks into that second round when their first pick comes up. But then I started kind of understanding this, right? Here's the thing, right? There's so much talent at different positions in this draft for the Bears. Can they afford not getting 2 positions of need to trade up and get one player that could fill one position of need? I guess it comes down to who and what that player is, right? For example, if some crazy way Marion Hampton fell there at the last pick of the first round, would I be mad if the Bears package their second round picks or one of them with another pick to move up? Depends on what the other pick is, right? But I think overall with the talent, especially at running back and things like that, and even at tackle, like we just talked about, 39 and 41st picks in this draft, they make a lot of sense, right? So I think in having those nearly back-to-back, right, only one pick between those two, I don't think that that's a luxury that the Bears can give up. And that's kind of what they talk about in this article as well, right? So, and they point out the fact that many draft experts that the talent between number 20 and 60 in this draft are all very similar, right? So because of that, unless somebody just takes a crazy fall down the draft boards, I don't necessarily think that the Bears should take that chance. Now, maybe I'm wrong with that. You guys can let me know how you feel down below when it comes down to something like that. But like, if somebody like Tyler Warren somehow crazily fell that low, would you take it then? Maybe, right? So it was an interesting thing that I had an initial reaction to, but then I had to sit back and look at. The next one they brought up is that the Bears have to avoid Jalen Walker, if available, at number 10 overall. Now, this is an edge rusher, Jalen, there, and they point out this. He's highly undersized as a true defensive end at 6'1", 243 pounds, and he doesn't have the skill set to become a linebacker, which is kind of the most likely scenario on him moving to that, right? And so, especially now with the Bears using two linebackers probably most of the time, Kyler Gordon's going to be in the field in that nickel a lot, filling that out. Jalen Walker would be, I get what they're getting at with that. Sometimes you got to look at some players outside of just the measurables and look at the dog that they have. But I don't think Jalen Walker's somebody to draft at number 10 overall. So I can understand their thought process on that one. But, I'm not going to say that because of their reasoning. I just think that there's so much talent at other positions that make more sense. You can get some quality linebackers later in this draft that you may not want to do that. The next thing that they brought up that Ryan Poles may do, they say Ryan Poles cannot afford to trade back with screaming value still left on the draft board, but he shouldn't be trusted not to. Now, here's the thing, and they paint out a nightmare scenario. They say this. A complete and total nightmare for Bears fans will be seeing running back Ashton Gentry still on the board at number 10, and Poles chooses to trade out of the pick with a team like Dallas at number 12, who are also in need of a running back. If Dallas presented Poles with an offer too rich to refuse, he may just see it as a no-brainer to move back only 2 spots and acquire some serious additional draft capital. Here's what I'll say. If I love Ashton Gentry, but if somebody's willing for you to only move 2 spots back, and if it's picking up another second or another third in this draft, I don't know, man. Like I said, the talent between, you can still get Amari and Hampton, you can still do some things like that. I don't know if I agree that that's the wrong decision for Ryan Poles to make. I think that if a team like the Cowboys called and you're only moving 2 spots back and you're picking up an additional day 2 pick, I don't hate that at all for the Bears. And maybe that's just me in my fan mode, maybe a little bit too much. But I think that actually would be great use of value, especially at the positions, the players that are available at the running back position for the Bears in this draft personally. But let me know what you guys think on that down below. Lastly, before we get out of here today, man, I do want to talk a little bit about this comment from where the Bears could go, right? This one comes, of course, from Brad Biggs, who usually a lot of things around this time of year come from Brad Biggs, who should not be taken as 100% gospel. I want to be clear there. He said this, though. Cornerback isn't a position I would rule out for a high draft pick. If there's a highly guarded option at number 10 and Michigan's Will Johnson and Texas' Jahdae Barron could be on the board, it's at least worth a discussion because there's no such thing as having too much talent or depth at cornerback. The Bears would need to have a significant higher grade on cornerback to pass on some other positions. And I think that last part is clear, right? That's the key thing. They would have to really grade the cornerback very, very highly, right? Because there are just positions that just make more sense. I've said it before. I've talked about it. You can go back to those episodes on why Tyreek Stevenson's season wasn't as bad as some Bear fans talk about it. And I do think with a change of coaching staff, just better execution, a change in play style, we're still going to keep the same scheme. We're going to blitz more and be a lot more aggressive of a defense next year. I think there's more than enough to be said as well that, cornerback isn't the biggest need there. Don't get me wrong. Will Johnson is a hell of a talent. And, not to say that I hate him in a Bears uniform because I wouldn't, because I do think he is a hell of a talent. You have Will Johnson, Jalen Johnson, and Kyler Gordon there as your cornerback trio, and then you still, for at least one season, have Tyreek Stevenson and Terrell both as your, that's just one of the best cornerback groupings in all of football. Right now, you could trade Tyreek, you could trade another guy, whatever you need to do there, but I just think there are other positions that are bigger needs right now. You would really have to grade Will Johnson as an almost can't-miss prospect for you to take him at number 10 there, right? And that's just thing when it comes down to, right? He does go on to say this. Corner is a position simply not discussed enough on the whole of social media. Guess what? I've been talking about more safety than corner. I can't give myself too much credit on that one. The Bears have one top shelf corner, that's true. Tyreek Stevenson is a temperamental liability. Kyler Gordon is solid if unspectacular in the slot. What? He's one of the best nickel corners in the league nonetheless. I'll be fascinated to see Gordon in Dennis Allen's scheme. The Bears don't need corner depth. They need someone to line up opposite Jalen Johnson every Sunday. I think a lot of the evaluation on Tyreek Stevenson matters in that. And that's fair when it comes down to that. But that we'll see where it goes on this. I love that more people are talking about it, about the cornerback situation. That last one came from Jeff Hughes of the Bears blog. But overall, I still view it as corner is not the biggest need right now for the Chicago Bears. And, sometimes you got to go talent rather than need. And if that's what the Bears decide to do, that's what the Bears decide to do. We shall see. But I think overall, you really got to review what and who the talent is there as well. At least that's my opinion. But you guys know it's Monday, so I like to get a little bit into the mailbag. Usually it's Darius, because Darius seems to always call on the weekend after the mailbag hours. But let's get into it, man. We got one from Darius. Let's go ahead and play that now.
What's going on, man? Old Darius in Dallas. Pretty good little couple weeks, man, to be a Chicago sports fan, guys. Daggone Bulls doing what they're supposed to be doing for a change. They looking great. White Sox are above 500, We're looking good, man. But yeah, man, I just wanted to, put some of that positive juju into the Bears, man. And, I really do, for whatever reason, and I'm probably going to be kicking myself in the ass for saying this after the second week of the year. Who knows? But I'm expecting, or should I say predicting, a good year from Braxton Jones. Simply due to the fact that I think the game is going to slow down for him due to the fact that he's got Tooney over there kind of helping him a little bit with, because I don't know if Braxton ever had an issue with picking up stunts or something like that confused him. But the thing I love about having Tooney the most is that those stunts, man, guys were getting pressure on us with just four defensive linemen just from doing stunts up the middle. You know what I mean? So I think that Tooney's going to put an end to that, because he's going to be able to identify all the stuff pre-snap that he needs that wasn't identified last year, or that was put on a rookie to do with Caleb last year. I think the game is going to slow down for Braxton a little bit to where he can just focus on his fundamentals and executing on that side of the ball. So I think that with that better talent and better coaching, we haven't had a good offensive line coach in well over 5 years. So with the coach, I think Braxton's going to have a good year, and he's going to be kind of like that, like what Charles Leno used to be for us. He wasn't elite, but he was good. I think he'll be that, and if he can be that, that's totally fine, man. I think he's also going to slow down the game for Caleb, and that's another thing that even with Drew Dahlman and having veterans in the center of that line now, Caleb doesn't have to worry about the pre-snap stuff as much as far as pass protection goes. He's got linemen that can do their job and pick up on that, so he can just focus on executing his timing, making sure his footwork is right, and getting rid of that ball. So it's going to help the game slow down for everybody. Also, man, real quick, only thing we got to do around this time is look at players in the draft. So, I've been taking a little bit more of a look at that old TreVeyon Henderson, Hayes. And, the more I look at him, I think that might be the running back that we need to take a look at, just because of his speed and his ability to block and pass block in the backfield, man. It's a lot like Matt Forte, the way that kid plays as far as his playing style goes. And I wouldn't mind having that. Let me know what y'all think. Check this out there now.
Here's the thing with Braxton, right? And I've said this before. Braxton isn't as bad as what some people make him out to be, but he's not as good as far as just a clear-cut starting caliber tackle, in my opinion. He's still damn good, right? Well, in certain areas. He can be really solid. Solid is better to place it, but you can definitely upgrade from him. Now, I've said it before. If the Bears do want to use this time with better overall talent on the offensive line, better coaching to reevaluate what Braxton Jones can be for them long term, I'm not mad at it, right? They're going to be tackles in next year's draft. The Bears aren't going to give up any of their draft capital, I think, next year either. They're going to have an opportunity to get another tackle. But with some of the tackles in this draft, like, and Ryan Poles' his own words, I think play a part into this as well, him saying that they will bring in competition for Braxton at that position. I think those words hold true because I think that is what Ryan Poles really wants to do. And I think that they look at Braxton and see somebody who hasn't really progressed to me since a rookie. He's basically still the same guy. Now, that's solid, but I don't think it's something that you look at and you're like, this is absolutely our starting tackle for the foreseeable future. But maybe he can work on some of those other things, right? Maybe he can work on his footwork and other things like that, and we'll see what ends up happening there. But overall, like, Braxton, we'll see what happens with Braxton, right? And I think that like, Braxton could have a surprise season for Bears fans. I really think he could. You bring in some really good running backs as well. The overall standard of that offensive line, maybe it could go in a place where Braxton he performs better and people look at him in more of a better light and his outlook looks better going forward. There is a chance for that. But I do think that the Bears, especially depending on who's on the board where they pick, there could be some talent tackle, because we already do need depth anyway, that you can't afford to pass up. And if they do pass up Braxton Jones in that depth chart, then so be it. At least that's some of my thought process. You guys can let me know how you feel down below. But guys, thank you so much for tuning in. Make sure you guys are following us at Chi Bears Central. You can send us any feedback, questions, comments, concerns. ChicagoBearsCentral@gmail.com. Lastly, if you want to leave a text message and or voicemail for the mailbag, the number to do so, 773-242-9336. We are the #1 spot for everything Chicago Bears related, but that's thanks to you lovely and beautiful people. And like I like to end every episode on, Chi-Town up, but Bear down. Love you guys. Peace, y'all.
This has been a presentation of the Break Media.